but a federal crossbencher is renewing calls for electoral reform with the introduction of proposed legislation. Kate Chaney's Restoring Trust Bill will require any political donation over $5,000 to be disclosed in real time. It would also ban substantial Commonwealth contractors from making political donations.
Now, you won't see this bill coming from the major parties. They are keen to maintain the status quo, protect their funding sources and reduce political competition.
I do put the challenge out. Will any politician in this place say no thank you to this?
And Kate Chaney joins me now live. Forgive me for a moment, Kate, for thinking you're a senator. Of course, you're the member for Curtin. I'm not sure if you've had to run up and down for divisions as well, but a busy day for you there, obviously, with this bill on the agenda. You've had it in the House this morning and I listened to your news conference. Can you just talk us through the issue you're trying to address here in this bill and what the key feature of it is?
So Australians really want to have faith in their politicians, and there are a lot of things about the way our elections are run that undermine that faith. So this bill tries to do three things. Firstly, improve transparency so we can actually see where the money is coming from before we vote. Secondly, reducing financial influence so people will have faith that decisions are being made in everyone's interests, not in vested interests. And also, thirdly, levelling the playing field so that there can be competition for political ideas and candidates, just like we've got competition in business.
There's not just integrity concerns at the moment require, or at least the prompting legislation in Canberra. We're seeing states and territories grapple with all sorts of things. Down here in Victoria, we've had corruption commission reports. Obviously, ICAC is quite active at the moment. The NAC has only just started. Are you hopeful of perhaps getting Don Farrell around to some of your proposals this afternoon?
I think that communities really expect more, and I'm meeting with Don Farrell this afternoon, and I will be talking to him about these 13 reforms that have broad support from candidates, from the crossbench, but also from democracy think tanks and civil society organisations and academics. And really, when there are things that are not necessarily in the interests of the major parties, the only way they happen is if there's community pressure and support. And Helen Haynes's Integrity Commission Private Members Bill is a great example of this. She introduced it and showed that it was possible. It took us a while, but it became an issue at the next election, and now we have an anti-corruption commission. So the crossbench has a really important role to play to speak for communities, especially when there are things that are not necessarily in the interests of major parties.
Your bill would ban donations from private contractors to the government. Would that capture some of the large consulting firms that I know we were just talking about with your parliamentary colleague Barbara Pocock about?
It would absolutely capture the big four consulting firms. In fact, if you look at all the OECD countries, about half of them ban all corporate donations, but 3/4 of them ban government contractor donations. So it's about time Australia caught up and implemented that here as well. It would capture any substantial government contractor, that's a contract over $200,000. And also people who are bidding for government contracts. When we look at that, the big four have donated $4.3 million to the major political parties in the last 10 years. And in that time, the value of the contracts that they're getting from government has increased by more than 4 times. So they're getting a pretty good payoff for their political support at the moment. And I think Australians want to know that decisions about contracts are not made because of political donations and favours that are owed.
Does your bill address caps at all on donations? And I guess if not, why not?
So caps are really tricky because I, like most Australians, think there's too much money in politics. But the other principle we need to balance is that people also want to know when they have a choice of candidate. And it's really difficult and expensive to get your name out there and get your message out there. So we have to make sure that if we apply donation or spending caps, it doesn't actually have the intended or unintended consequence of reducing political competition and embedding the two major parties. In this bill, I haven't addressed caps because there are very divergent views on it. But in this bill, I've got 13 reforms that have really broad agreement. So I see this as a baseline of any reform that the government could put forward. And there are probably other areas as well where it could go further. But there are 13 changes here that it's pretty hard to argue with.
Okay, Cheney, good luck with the bill and good luck, no doubt, with the meeting with the Special Minister for State, Don Farrell. Appreciate your time.
Thanks very much, Simon.